by our guest, Bob Chapman, who comes to be with us to share his knowledge with us every Monday morning, because we want to know what to expect this week. What the heck is going on? Are we saved now? Is the worst over? Well, joining us is the editor of the International Forecaster newsletter, and you can get a copy of it, a gratis copy of it, if you will, by calling 877-479-8178. That's 877-479-8178. But we have him live and with us today to find out all about the TARP and how we're going to be saved now. Thank you, Bob Chapman, for joining us again on the Power Hour today.
Well, you're welcome. It's very nice to be here again early on Monday morning. And as you know, we have a holiday today, and so the markets are not open. And there's no news coming from overseas to speak of as well. But it'll start coming in as the day progresses, particularly in announcements, statistical in nature from different countries. The market is under pressure, even though we've had approximately an $800 billion stimulus package that's passed and ready to be signed. And I don't believe that the package is going to do what many believe it is made or put together to do. And the reason I say that is that it's really a small amount of money in the scheme of things.
I can't believe you said that. A small amount of money? $1 trillion?
Well, you got to remember that the economy at the end of last year, the GDP was approximately $16 trillion in the United States. So you're looking at something on the order of, 5 or 6% of GDP, and that normally will increase GDP by about 0.5%. But at the same time, you have all these other factors going on. Exports are falling, as well as imports, and it was always thought that when a situation like this developed, that in all probability exports would increase, and they're not. They're going the other way, and they are for everybody else as well. So the distribution of the stimulus package is such that it's the event of these different facets of it showing up will be over a longer period of time, perhaps 1.5 to 2 years. So after about 3 months, when everybody thinks that we're going to get this wonderful boom in the market because of the money that's being spent, it's not going to happen. And psychologically, that's going to put people back on their heels. Now, how does that affect the market? I think the market, in holding at approximately 8,000, that what the market has done, and that's its function actually, has discounted the good results that would come from this kind of program. And that has been one of the factors why the market is held at 78.50. We're closed on Friday.
Uh-huh.
And the bulls look at it in a different light. They look at it as, well, the buying is accumulating and the market's going to go back up to 9,000 or something like that, when in fact it's really the other way. I think the impetus of buying that's going in here is not well thought out, and I don't think it's going to create the rally that people are looking for. In fact, I see people experts who think that we're going to get a rally like we had in 1933. Now, that means that they've already accepted the fact that we're in depression, but they're not saying that.
Well, they're actually starting to say the D word now on CNBC. Of course, they're letting the foreign people talk about it, but not here in the United States, as if it couldn't happen here.
That's correct. And, of course, they're probably listening to the Power Hour where we announced 3 weeks ago that the Depression had begun. And so that is very insightful of them, and I'm glad that they're listening. And there is one American, myself, who says we're in a depression. But anyway, subconsciously, they're admitting that a depression exists when you compare to 1933. There was 16 months when we had a rally, and the market went up considerably. It turned around and went right back down again. And it was based upon the 45% increase that was coming in the same way that stimulus, as they call it today, was coming during the 1930s. And, of course, it didn't work out too well. It put things off for a while, but it didn't solve the problem. And if you notice that the stimulus package, which was actually begun by Hoover and carried on by FDR, all it did was extend the time frame for the nastiness which was to come. Unemployment got to 30%, approximately, the varying figures. And in 1939, it was 17.2%. In 1940, it was 16.4%. So unemployment was still pretty bad going into December the 7th, 1941. And so a little was accomplished, but for the price was an increase in federal debt by 45%. In other words, I almost doubled the federal debt. Mm-hmm. And we're going through the same thing now. And I've already announced that this stimulus plan that we're looking at is not going to do the job. And they will be talking, government and Wall Street banking, they will be talking about another stimulus package, only this time they won't be so conservative about it. They will have a $2 trillion stimulus package next January. And that's not going to do the job either, and they know that. They know history. They're not dumb. They're just trying to buy time.
Well,
that's where we're headed.
Yeah, we refer to it at the Power Hour. It's not the what is that stimulus bill? The official name of it, HR 1, is the nice term that they give to it. We've been referring to it as the Bailout Accountability Reconstruction Fund, the BARF fund.
And so isn't TARP. TARP, they're going to spend another $350 billion. My guess is that the banks are still underwater, and I got two other estimates. One from Nouriel Roubini, and which is $1.8 trillion, and David Rosenberg from Merrill Lynch at $2 trillion. I'm calling for $3.5 trillion. That the banks are still offside that we don't know about because they're lying about everything.
Oh, the banks are still underwater. Well, we had 4 more go under this past Friday, but you're not hearing about it. They don't even cover it on television anymore. It's kind of like if we don't tell them, they won't know it, and therefore it won't have happened. But 4 more banks.
That's why we, if you noticed in reading the International Forecaster, we call it the FDIC Friday Night Financial Follies. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
The whole thing is El Scammo Whammo. And they just don't want you to know what's going on, just as you just said. And so that's going to continue, this subterfuge, this propagandizing. But it's not going to make anything change. And, other hosts have said to me, well, gee, it looks like this thing's all going to fall apart on February the 23rd or on March the 15th or some such date. And nobody knows. But I will say this. These people are not dumb, and they know how to extend things. And so I still think we have 2.5 years to go here, and before the house comes tumbling down, so to speak. And that's the way I think we're heading. I think next year we're going to go into what they call Weimarization. Weimar was a republic that was formed in Germany after the First World War, and the Germans had to give reparations to the people they had war with in Europe, and that meant they had to pay them money And if they couldn't do that, they would repossess a factory here and some fields over there and things like that. And the only way that Germany could pay was to create all kinds of money. And they created hyperinflation between 1921 and 1923, and it's become a classic. And so we're going to enter that same thing through monetization. Probably in about 3 months it'll begin. March,
you think
April,
it'll be in May that this whole downturn is going to really be affected or effectively felt? Well, I think it's important, though. Today, Japan announced that they've had the worst deficit really since the 1970s, and of course they use the 1990s as sort of their the early 1990s as their level before, and now they're going back to the 70s. So we're going to talk about that and other things after this break, and I'll give you more time to talk to our guests today because I know you all love to get your questions in.